Okay, so let's look at Habakkuk 2, verse 4. I wish I had time to break down all the things I see in this verse as well as this whole chapter, but I'm going to jump straight to, I think, the most important one where it says, "But the righteous shall live by his faith." And many people know this verse from how Paul quotes it, where he says, "The righteous shall live by faith." In Hebrew, what we have is be'emunato, by his faith. Um, but then if you read in the Greek Septuagint, it reads, "By my faith." A couple things. First, remember, it's good to know, actually, you may not know this, but the word for faith is also a word for faithfulness, trustworthiness. And so, what could this be referring to? That in the midst of things that aren't making sense, there's a vision that God has for his people and what he's going to do, what's happening. And the righteous person is going to do what? They're going to live by his faithfulness. So that could be, um, hey, you do your part, be faithful to the covenant. That's what you can do, right? Even amidst chaos that's happening around you, things aren't making sense. Continue to live in faith. So that's one rendering it could be. But if this is read according to like the Greek Septuagint translation, which theoretically could have just a different Hebrew behind it, which his versus my feels like a big difference. And in meaning, it could have a significant nuance, but in Hebrew, it'd be the difference of having a vav versus a yod is the only difference. Yod at the end of a word is my, whereas vav at the end of a word is his. And those letters are written very similarly. It's actually one of the most common scribal mistakes that we run into in Hebrew Bible text manuscripts. So it's not far fetched at all that maybe there's a different Hebrew text that reads "Be'emunati," by my faithfulness. And if that's how it's supposed to be read, then it's God saying, "Trust me. The righteous will live by my faithfulness." So again, in spite of what's coming, remember to put your trust in me. So that would speak a powerful message as well. Another interesting potential is reading it as not by his faithfulness, but by its faithfulness, because there's no word in Hebrew for it. Everything is gender. So it's either his or her, even if it's not referring to a person or something that's gendered like an animal. And so John Collins, for example, he reads this as, "But the righteous will live by its faithfulness." In other words, that being the vision. So trust the vision and what's coming. So, you know, the difference between trusting in God versus trusting in his vision, you could see at the end of the day, does that feel kind of slight? I don't know. But theoretically, you could have someone who trusts in God, but not in this new thing that God has spoken and said. You could have someone who maybe only trusts in a vision, but not in the one who gives the vision. So there's a lot you could preach on if you want about the difference between trusting in something God does, but then also trusting in God himself, trusting in something like trusting in God, but maybe not trusting in what he is doing or what he's saying. A lot you could break down in there. But there is reason to view this in a few different ways. Because obviously Paul, there's no possessive suffix at the end. The righteous will live by faithfulness or by faith. It's just no ending on there. That's almost kind of the most open-ended. It's like, whose faithfulness? Is it the righteous live by God's faithfulness, by my faithfulness, or is it maybe both, a mixture of both? And it's a two-way street in this relationship.